Today's session is something I'm really excited about. If you look in the bio that Robin just gave a little bit, or Robin read out, I used to have a company called Rootly. And Rootly was this product that took text-based job postings and converted them into these visual candidate experiences. Before that, I was working on this product called Raise Your Flag, which was careers for people that don't have university or college, and was also highly visual and finding ways to transform job postings. And I often say that, like, there's so many nerdy things that you can say about me, but possibly the nerdiest is just how obsessed I am with job postings, and how I think they could be so much better, and where I see room for improvement and ways that I think we can actually do it so quickly. But before we jump into any of that, I want to dial the hands of time back to the year 2004, when I was living rent-free in my parents' basement, and I was going to college for business administration, and working as the frozen food section manager of Tom's No Frills in Ajax, Ontario. I decided that the next logical step of my life should be drop out of college, quit my job, move out of my parents' house to a tiny village on the other side of the planet. And by tiny village, I'm talking Tokyo, Japan. There was this company in Japan that actually hired me when I was 21 years old to go and teach English to their Japanese students. Incredible. Except that I moved to Japan not knowing anything about Japanese culture, not knowing any of the Japanese language. I couldn't speak a single word or read a single character. So I arrive in Japan my first time, and I meet up with the people that are training me on how to teach English to my Japanese students. And for the first week, we're training every day. And on the final day of training, they announced that we're going out for a celebration meal at a real Japanese restaurant. And I'm so stoked because I'd been eating nothing but vending machine food for like a week, and now I'm getting the chance to go to a real Japanese restaurant in Japan. We're walking to this restaurant, and I find out that nobody in our group reads, speaks, or understands Japanese, which is highly confusing for me because we're in Japan, the place where I'd expect at least someone to speak or read or understand Japanese. We go into this restaurant, we sit down, and the server hands me the menu. And I take one look at this menu, immediate sweat starts pouring from my armpits, because not only are there no pictures, there's no English on this menu at all. And so I'm looking at this, and I'm turning to my coworkers and my trainers, and nobody knows. And so this is where, if you saw the promo for this webinar, this is where I'm forced to come up with a method of ordering food in Japan. A method of ordering food that I used the entire year that I lived there anytime I encountered a menu that looked like this. And the method that I came up with, it's highly scientific, so don't be worried if you get confused by the name of it. I'll explain how it works. My method of ordering food in Japan is called the point, smile, and hope method. So you take a menu, here's the science, you take a menu and you point, anywhere is okay, you smile so that you don't offend anybody, and then you start hoping that you get something that you will eat, or that you've eaten before, or that you recognize. And sometimes this worked out amazing. I got fried chicken and French fries and salad and sushi and soup and noodles and things that I love and things that I eventually learned to love. But some other times it didn't work out in my favor. Like one time, after using the point, smile, and hope method, I got something called basashi. And for any of you who don't speak Japanese, I'll help you with the translation. Basashi is raw horse. And you saw that coming because the title of this presentation. What does this have to do with job postings? I believe it has a lot to do with job postings. I believe that for so long, we've been doing job postings a disservice. We haven't been doing enough with job postings. And as a result, job seekers are in a position where they're left trying to like point, smile, and hope that they can get something that they want on the other side. And what I mean by that is that they do not understand what they're looking at. And it's not their fault, right? I think that as employers, we could be doing a lot more in helping job seekers understand what they're holding, what they're looking at, and what they're about to get into. And not only is that really great for job seekers and candidate experience, it also just happens to be really great for the organizations who are taking a little bit of extra time to craft job postings in a way that connect with job seekers. And so I have this stance on things that I believe that job postings are the base unit of talent acquisition. And right now, they are stuck in the 1990s with their frosted tip hair, doing the Macarena, and playing with a Tamagotchi. And what I mean by that is, after this presentation is done, don't do it right now, but I would love for you to go on the Internet Archive, and I would love for you to go back and try to find job sites in the early 2000s or the late 1990s. And aside from maybe some nicer typography, some better pixels, and maybe some better color palettes, when it comes to job postings, nothing has changed in the last like 30 years of the internet. We took something that used to be in print, we put it on a screen, and we sat back for 30 years. And while there has been some minor changes and some different ways that we approach job postings, I believe that we could be doing so much more when it comes to creating connections with job seekers via job postings. And one of the things that I'd love to get out of the way is that your candidates are consumers before, during, and after their experience with you as an employer brand or with your employer brand. They're consumers. We are the only ones that call them candidates. They don't enter into one of these experiences like just before they're about to go to a career site or read a job posting or click apply on a job board. They don't sit back and go, oh wait, now I'm entering candidate mode and I need to lower all of my expectations and everything that I understand about the consumer web and everything that I've learned over the last 30 years of interacting with these digital experiences, right? We are the only ones that call them candidates. And these types of experiences that I have on the screen right now are the types of experiences that they're having as a consumer, right? Checking out of a sneaker store online, or shopping for a car, or donating, or trying to find a partner, or trying to find a vacation home for the holidays. And the part that's really lost in the process quite often is that deciding to apply for a job, trying to evaluate whether or not a job is for you, it's a big life decision, right? And I would put it right up there with like trying to like figure out where you're going to live, or what house you're going to buy or rent, or what kind of car you're going to buy, or where you're going to take your next vacation, or how you're going to try to appeal to maybe finding your partner online, or any of these experiences that I would equate to these other types of life decisions. The key difference is these other life decisions have people obsessing over experience. They have people obsessing over pixels and words and typography and color palettes. But when it comes to job postings and that major life decision of maybe re-entering the workforce, or entering the workforce in a different country, or trying to level up, or trying to get a job at another level, or get more money, we're like, here's some text and bullet points. And that's what you get to try to make this life decision. And it's like we forget that they are consumers, and it's like we forget that they are about to make a life decision. And it's in our best interest as organizations trying to attract people to our organizations to try to really appeal to them in ways that they understand and that they expect as consumers. So my goal today is to introduce 3 extremely concrete ways that we can start making better job postings, writing better job postings, and doing a better job of communicating with job seekers about the opportunities to work for our companies. And the very first step in doing this is knowing exactly who you're looking for, right? I think too many organizations are overly focused on filling the top of the funnel. Right? They say, Ryan, we just need to get as many people in the top of the funnel as possible, because eventually we know that there's going to find people that aren't the right fit and work their way down, and then we'll get the right hire. And if you were in my last conversation with the CEO of Career Beacon Eve, we did a webinar in February where we talked about maybe flipping that on its head and doing everything we can do to support the right hire. But the very first step here is knowing exactly who you're looking for. When I work with organizations, they say things like, Ryan, we're getting just so many poor fit candidates applying to our jobs, like people that are just not quality. We get so many people who aren't even taking time to learn about our organization. These people are not even taking any creativity. We're just getting job applications and resumes that are like cover letters that are meant for other companies. Like people are just, applying and they're not even taking any time. And then the punch in the stomach moment sometimes for employers happens when I tell them, well, look, your applicants for the most part are a direct reflection of you as an employer, and not truly as an employer, but how you're putting yourself out there as an employer, the type of creativity, energy, and imagination that you are approaching the job posting process, or the job posting, is the exact type of energy and exact type of creativity that you end up getting back from applicants for your job postings. So if you're trying to appeal to everybody, and now you're getting everybody applying to that job, and the complaint is that people are they're not the right people, or the right people are not applying, or there are too many people applying, or too many low qualified people applying. I think that, yes, a lot of that is like AI, and a lot of that is just people applying to every job. But I would love for organizations to take a little bit of that power back and to really craft job postings that are speaking to the people that they are truly trying to attract. And so step number one is knowing and identifying exactly who you want to hire for the role that you're about to open, or the role that you have open, the job posting that you are trying to craft. And so the way that you do this is you actually start with the best. Again, this is something I borrowed from the presentation that I was part of in February. But the way that you do this is that you start with the absolute best person doing that job in your company now. If that person is not in your company now, well, then you expand that to your network, and you try to find the best person that you have in your network who is doing that right now. And then what you're going to do is you are going to connect with them, and you are going to find out why they're doing it. You're going to find out how they landed the job. You're going to find out why they applied. You're going to find out what they find really challenging about their role. You find out what they love about their role. You find out everything that gets them out of bed in the morning to do the job that they're doing. And then you are going to reverse engineer your job posting as if you're writing it directly to that person. All of the context that you've just pulled from the person who's the best at doing that thing, you are going to reverse engineer the job posting as if you're writing it directly to them. And again, I work with organizations to say, yeah, Ryan, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to fill the top of the funnel. And my argument is always that you do not need to fill the top of the funnel with a bunch of quantity. Of course, we know we're really looking for quality. And ultimately, the argument is we're looking for a market of one. You don't need 1,000 people in the top of the funnel. You need one. You need the right person for the right job at the right time, right? And you need to speak directly to them. And of course, I'm not pretending that you only need one person to apply to that job. But what I'm saying is creating a process that appeals to everybody will end up appealing to nobody. You'll get a bunch of those people into the funnel, and it'll be a really difficult time trying to filter out and trying to connect with the ones that are the right people for that role. So you understand who you're talking to. You've fully grasped that you are looking for a market of one. You've identified the person in your organization or your network who is the best at doing that thing. And you've accepted that now your job is to reverse engineer a job posting for that one person. What do you do next? Well, you talk to them. And you talk to them in a language that they know, in a language that they understand, and in a way that gets them excited, and in a way that creates context. What you don't do is start stuffing your job posting with terms that look like this. Well, you need communication skills, and maybe it's great communication skills. Maybe it's top tier communication skills, leadership skills, presentation skills, customer service skills, negotiation skills. These are the types of things that we see all of the time in a job posting, and they are the things, they are the terms that are creating the most confusion for job seekers. And what I mean by that is there's no context. Nobody understands what communication skills mean, or that term, what it means, without the context. And what I'm about to share with you is something that I would believe is the most important slide of our time together today. And it's this: generic terms in your job postings equal less diverse applicants. Why? Because of candidate interpretation. I believe that candidate interpretation is hands down the biggest threat to your time as an organization trying to get through these candidates, these applicants who are applying to these jobs. I think that it's the biggest threat to your applicant pool, not only by polluting it with unqualified, poor fit candidates for the role that you have open, but I also feel that it hurts the applicant pool in terms of diversity. And here's what I mean by this. Imagine you have a job posting and you are writing in that job posting that the person who you want to do this job, they need to have great problem solving skills. Well, you've got someone who's thinking about the time they were really cold and they took their velour tracksuit, they put it into a microwave, they set start for 30 seconds, they took it off, they put it on, and that was Mensa level problem solving skills. They were cold, they needed to get warm, and guess what? Those problem skills are perfect for your senior data scientist role that you've just opened up for your organization, right? Now, something else happens on the other end of this, and I mentioned this in a video that we recently posted on social for Career Beacon, is now imagine that the person who's reading this job posting that says great communication skills. That person is a person with a disability that impacts their hearing, and they see communication skills, and they're left to interpret what communication skills mean in the context of that job. And so maybe they see that and go, hey, great, I can do this, no problem. Or maybe they see that and they start thinking about all the times where their communication skills might have missed the mark or weren't exactly the right communication skills for the job, or that caused embarrassment for them or whatever. And they decide they don't want to apply at all. But for your organization, for that role, communication skills actually meant responding to customer service emails and handwriting thank you cards. And you just potentially missed out on a great hire because there was no context for that term that was appearing in your job posting, right? We know what communication skills mean in the context of that role for our organizations. Job seekers do not. And if you leave it up to their interpretation, I promise you they will get it wrong more than they get it right. And the result of that is a bunch of poor fit candidates convincing themselves that they are a great fit, and about a bunch of great fit candidates convincing themselves that they're not a great fit, or not having enough context and deciding to just bounce to the next job posting that they might be able to understand. And let's take a look at what this actually looks like in action, just so we can all identify in the wild what this ends up looking like. So I want to play a little game called Guess the Job Title. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a job posting and show you some of the qualifications and responsibilities of the job. And I want you to guess. Maybe you can say it out loud. Maybe you can type it into the chat if you'd like. But I'd like to start with a job posting here. This is one that I pulled off of Indeed a while ago. But there's a job posting here. And I want to go through some of the full job description details. So it starts off with other languages, just right off the jump. We are going right for other languages. They didn't talk about the main language. We're going straight for the other languages. And we are going with Thai, Chinese, and I'd like for you guys to type the response into the chat, if you will. Thai, Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, Korean. I like to call it the easy languages. Operating systems, Google Docs. The business equipment is a bunch of Microsoft stuff. Area of specialization, statistics, reports, records, invoices, financial statements, correspondence, contracts, charts, tables, graphs. At this point, you might be thinking of financial analyst. You might be thinking a venture capitalist. You might be thinking an investor of some sort. I bet what you're not thinking is a school secretary. I am not saying this at all to trivialize or to belittle school secretaries. I am bringing this up to say that, one, this job posting does a terrible job of explaining what is really needed for this role in this school. Can we maybe make some assumptions around it being in an international community, an international school? Maybe, because there's some other languages listed there, but there's nothing to go from. And I'm choosing from, of course, a spectrum of job that's just, or a job on the spectrum that's way on one end, right? This is clearly not what we're going for. But if I go to the middle of the spectrum, we find job postings that often look and sound like this one, right? We've got the ideal candidate will have exceptional organizational and communication skills. We're looking for someone with a positive, outgoing professional attitude. Being a team player is essential for working in our fast-paced, paperless environment. You will be the primary point of contact for our clients and the go-to person for the office. Let's go through the highlights of the required skills excellent English communication skills, diligent with details on all projects, familiar with Microsoft Office applications, Adobe PDF, and general office equipment, an effective communicator, critical thinker, organized, and enjoy working as a team. This job posting is saying a lot without saying anything. This job posting is for a receptionist. Again, this is not belittling, trivializing the work that a receptionist does. This is saying this job posting does very little in helping an individual understand if they're a good fit or not. Why? Because it's not saying anything. It is fully left up to candidate interpretation. And again, we've identified that is the biggest threat to your candidate pool. So, what does this look like in practice if we're trying to get away from this type of scenario? What does it look like when we are actually writing job postings that create context for candidates? Well, we start by anchoring everything that we put into a job posting, especially around requirements and responsibilities. We anchor those things to tasks, technology, time, deliverables, processes, or outcomes, right? Now, we're starting to create a little bit of context. As I like to say, sometimes we're creating texture for that job posting. So when someone lands on it, they can understand what it means and they can understand whether or not they can do that job, they have done that job, or they're willing to do that job. So here's a few really quick examples. Instead of falling into the habit of dropping the word or the term communication skills into a job posting, how about we tell people how they're going to use those communication skills, right? Like, what outcomes are we expecting them to achieve by using those communication skills? We might end up with something like, must be able to respond to customer service emails and handwrite thank you cards to our loyal customers. Again, instead of falling into the habit of presentation skills, why don't we tell a candidate what they're going to be presenting about, who they're going to be presenting to, or what they're going to be expected to achieve through the presentations? We might end up with something like, must be comfortable pitching new product ideas to earn support from a variety of stakeholders, including investors, team members, and customers, right? Now, as a candidate sees these things, they're going through the checklist in their brain, right? Have I done that? Can I do that? Will I do that? Right? It's a lot easier for a candidate to answer those questions. And one of the things that I should mention right now is I'm sure we'll get a question at the end around AI, or maybe multiple questions around AI. This communication skills, presentation skills, leadership skills, teamwork skills, that type of terminology in job postings makes it infinitely worse with AI. Because when you have a job posting with no context and a resume, the AI makes a lot of guesses and fills in a lot of blanks for a candidate when they're trying to identify whether or not you have communication skills, presentation skills, leadership skills, teamwork skills, whatever it is that we're putting in for generic terms. The AI will do a really good job of trying to please the job seeker by saying like, yeah, you did this, 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 and this. You definitely have communication skills. And the communication skills could be way off, because in the context of your company for that role at that time is completely different than their experience and the type of communication skills that the job seeker has. But AI is just trying to make all the guesses, apply, 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 apply. Candidates themselves are doing the same thing, apply, 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 apply. So it's in our best interest to be as contextual and clear as possible when we're talking about the roles and responsibilities for the jobs that we're posting and the job postings that we're actually crafting. Now, I've been in this game for a while. I think we've talked about that. I covered that at the very beginning. And I want to call out what I believe is the GOAT, the greatest of all time, job posting framework that was posted back in 2010. So 15 years ago, Jason Fried from 37 Signals, they were hiring an office manager / executive assistant. And they introduced this framework that I would encourage anybody to use anytime you're trying to figure out if there's enough context for something going into your job posting. And I call it the IF framework. And it goes like this. If you were working for us, here are some things you would have done last week. And then you go on to list some of the actual deliverables, the actual action items that somebody would have done in that role for your organization last week or today or yesterday or last month or whatever, next month. But it looks like this in practice. If you're working for us, here's some things you would have done for us last week as an office manager in our company. You would have talked to the landlord to get an update on the parking garage situation. You would have coordinated with the electronics company to schedule the installation of 4 flat panels. You would have received some packages. You would have sent 25 handwritten notes to customers, and you would have recommended restaurants and activities for our out-of-town guests. Okay. There are companies that look at this and go, yeah, but Ryan, you could have just taken all of that, wrapped that up in communication skills. That's the point. The point is that these are communication skills, but they're worded in the context of this role for that company. And there's no longer any guessing for a candidate. They see this and they go, hey, could I have talked to the landlord? Do I want to talk to the landlord? Have I talked to a landlord? Could I coordinate with an electronics company? Could I handwrite some letters to our customers? Could I recommend, would I recommend, have I recommended restaurants for out-of-town guests? And it's so much easier for a candidate to go through and put check marks on these things to decide whether or not they're a fit for this role. And again, it's in everyone's best interest for us to be able to, for us to empower job seekers to be able to do that. And so I know it would be wrong not to mention AI during this presentation. I spend a lot of time in different AI tools. I spend a lot of time using AI for a bunch of different things in my day-to-day. I spend in my personal and my side projects, I'm using AI in every way possible to make sure that I know what's going on and have my finger on the pulse of the developments in that world. And there are products and there are developments in AI that are basically creating a game of cat and mouse with candidates and companies. So you've got the auto apply, the filtering, the interviewing, then you've got the interview detection, and then you've got resume writing and resume AI detection to try to figure out what's AI and what's not AI. And I don't want to spend a lot of time focusing on those preventative things that we could be doing in that game of cat and mouse. What I want to do is I want to lay out how I would approach this if I wanted to use AI in terms of crafting better job postings and making sure that our employer brand and our employer value proposition is preserved and isn't lost during the process. And I'll tell you why in just a second. But what I would do if this is me starting this process, trying to figure out how to write better job postings, wanting to create more context and using AI to do so, is I would start by looking at my corporate site. And I would say, what do we have on the corporate site that's really important for the brand? And I would pull some of that over into a document. And I would do the same thing to the career site. I would say, what's really important on this career site for job seekers to know or for us to preserve as our employer brand or our employer value proposition? I would grab our values and our vision and company history and our company mission. And I would grab any documentation that I have that relate to employer value proposition. Anything at all that I have around our employer value proposition, I would grab that and I would put that into a document. And then on the secondary layer of data that I would be looking for, I would go on to our social channels and say, what have we done that's really great on social for building our employer brand or consumer brand or whatever? But what's really great? How about the blog posts that we've written about our company and our employer brand? Do we have any press releases that I believe are really important for this company? What about resumes? And with consent, this is like the biggest piece of this, with consent and without the PII, the identifiable information for the people that you're grabbing resumes for. But going back to the best in your organization that have done this, if we grab that person's resume, we strip all of that PII. So we don't want this to be tracked back to an individual at all. We want to say, like, these are the types of people that we hire. These are the types of people that do really great in our company. Here's some resumes of people that have done really great in our company. Again, with their consent and with no personal identifiable information at all. Grab that. Maybe some employee testimonials, maybe some podcasts, presentations, video content, or transcripts, maybe some Glassdoor reviews about your organization, and then maybe some, again, social content that might be out there for your organization. I would take all of these things, put them into whatever documents they need to be in, whether PDFs or docs or Google Slides or whatever. And then I would take all of that information and I would pipe that into a product like Poppy AI or Google's Notebook LM. And for those of you who don't know how this stuff works, definitely just a quick Google search will explain to you how these work. And I'll do a very, I'll try to summarize this in a couple of sentences. One of the issues with using AI in general, going onto ChatGPT and saying, write me a job posting for a sales representative for a SaaS product. It's going to write you a job posting that reads really great. It's going to read really great. And we might be so impressed and lost in the magic of this machine writing a job posting that reads really great, that we might forget that there's an employer brand behind all of this. There's a whole slew of things in your organization's DNA that makes it unique, and that will be completely lost if we're just allowing AI to do everything. And when we use products like Poppy AI or Notebook LM or some of the other products out there, we get to create like this context about our company via all of these materials that exist. And we get to pipe that into one of these products, and we get to say, here's who we are as an organization. Here's who we hire as an organization. Here's what we stand for as an organization. Here's what we do really well. Here's what people say about us. Here's what we're trying to do, and how we're trying to achieve our mission, our vision, and our values. And then these applications, so these systems like Poppy AI or Notebook LM, they use that as the context for outputs, right? So you could also maybe try to do this in a Claude project or a ChatGPT project, but I find that these types of systems work a little bit better. But now you feed all of that into the system and you say, okay, now I need some help. I need some help with an ideal candidate profile, right? You know, all of the stuff about our organization, all the type of people that we hire, all of the places we're trying to go, all the things we're trying to do. Help me try to figure out who the ideal candidate is for the role I'm trying to hire. And then help me with that job posting. You know everything about us. You know what we offer. You know where we operate. You know what we're trying to do. Help me write a job posting for that ideal candidate profile for my organization. Not just a job posting for that role, a job posting for your organization based on the context that you've been able to feed a system. You can then use that to create social content for the employer brand for that role. You can use that to create LinkedIn messaging. So if you're reaching out, trying to connect with somebody on LinkedIn that you think might be a great candidate for that role, you can use all of that to help you craft these really compelling LinkedIn messages and tell these brand stories within different message. That could be an email, that could be a tweet, that could be a DM, it doesn't matter. But you're feeding these systems with context from your organization to then be able to go out and have some outputs that are unique to your organization and what you're trying to do, and who you're trying to target. So if it was me and I was starting from scratch and I'm trying to figure out how AI can help my processes, I'm not jumping into Claude or Gemini or GPT or a ChatGPT or Perplexity or something and be like, hey, write me a job posting. I'm feeding a system with all the context about my organization first before trying to get any output at all. And then, only then, after it has context, am I trying to get output. And as I said, I would bring something around at the end here. A couple weeks ago, Stefan McGrath posted this on LinkedIn, and I want to make sure that I read it because it's something I believe is that important. I rarely read slides, but this one is important. AI tools promise to improve speed and efficiency, and many do. According to one survey, over 85% of recruiters said AI tools had helped them reduce time to hire. Yay, great, fantastic. Some enterprise teams have cut that time by more than 70%. Wild. This isn't a trend waiting to happen, it's already here. But for every company seeing success, there are others quietly realizing something else. While AI has made content generation easier, it's also made it harder to stand out. When everyone is using the same tools, trained on the same data and following the same logic, content starts to sound the same. One of the most important things we can keep in mind and in practice when we are incorporating AI into our systems and processes on the talent acquisition side of things is preserve the brand voice. And do it by any means necessary within these systems. Every time you enter a new system and you forget to bring that brand voice and the context with it, it has a greater chance of going off the rails, of hallucinating, of implicating or improvising or assuming something about your brand that might not be true. And again, it's always wrapped up in a package that reads really nice. So it's in our best interest to make sure that we are preserving our employer brand voice by any means possible. So we've identified who we want to talk to. We've started to realize how we want to be talking to them. That context is everything when it comes to job postings. We've eliminated things like communication skills, leadership skills, presentation skills, team player skills or whatever. We talked about those in the previous section. Now it's time to show them the menu. Now, After living in Japan for a very short period of time, my first time in my early 20s, I was lucky enough to find that not every restaurant hands you a menu handwritten in Japanese with no pictures. That most restaurants actually hand you a menu that looks like this. And there's zero room for interpretation on this. I don't need to be able to speak Japanese in this restaurant. I'm able to go in here, find the French fries or the tempura or the pizza or the grilled fish or the corn with a butter on top and go, one of these, please. Can I just get one of these, please? They don't need to speak English. I don't need to speak Japanese. We're good, right? But then what I actually found in Japan trumped this was the next level of menu. And it's this. I found that in Japan, again, 20 years ago when I first started coming to Japan and the first time I lived here, that some restaurants, if you're lucky, before you even enter the restaurant, have a glass case. And in that glass case are 2-scale, 1-to-1 scale, exact replicas, plastic molds of the food that you can order at this restaurant. Like before you go into this restaurant, you know exactly how many French fries are going to arrive on your plate when you order French fries, or how many sausages are going to be on that plate, or how big the steak will be. And you can imagine if you're a vegan walking through the streets of Tokyo and you come to a restaurant with this as their glass case of their food, their menu offering before you enter the restaurant, there's no way you're going in this restaurant. It's 99% meat products in this case. There's no words need to be spoken for all of the context to be established. And I think now you might be able to see where I'm going with this one, that this is the goal with your job postings. The goal is to create so much context that a candidate knows that they know whether or not they're a fit. They can evaluate, right? Whether or not they're going to click that apply button. They don't have to interpret and opt in or opt out based on that interpretation. They know exactly what to expect way before clicking that apply button. When it comes to showing job seekers the menu, I'd love to be able to say it's just about creating context for the duties and the tasks and the responsibilities, the education, qualification, and training for the job. That's part of it. It's a good part of it, but there's a whole other part to job postings that absolutely need to be on the menu for job seekers. Every year, a report is published. Multiple reports, I shouldn't say a report, multiple reports are published around what job seekers are looking for when it comes to job postings and in their job search. And sure, on that list every year, maybe there are a few new things that pop up or that get reshuffled or reordered, but we see mostly the same list again every year, or every year in and out. We see compensation. How much am I going to make if I get this job? Qualifications. What do I need to have? What type of training do I need to have? What is the actual job details, right? It's amazing that that's even on the list. Like, job details should be such an obvious one that people don't have to say, you know what I'd like in a job posting? Some job details, please. Performance goals. How am I going to be evaluated in this role? Company culture. What is this company like? Like, if I join, what is this company like? And I'm not talking about like beer on Fridays and a ping pong table in the office. Like, what is at the core of the culture of this company? What is the mission? What are you trying to achieve? And is that something that resonates with me and what I'd like to spend my working hours on? Where can I go if I join this company? What is the career growth and trajectory for my career if I join this organization? And then tell me a little bit about this company. And I work with a lot of companies, and I've heard so many times specifically about compensation. And I'll give it a very specific example that happened maybe 3 or 4 times ago when I was doing a presentation very similar to this one that I'm sharing with you today. I had someone who said, yeah, but Ryan, we don't publish compensation in our job postings. And I said, why not? Like, why don't you? And they said, well, because we don't pay Google salaries. And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, we don't pay Netflix salaries, or we don't pay Shopify salaries. And I'm like, okay. Most other companies don't either. And I said, why do you work there? Like, you're there. You clearly have some reasons to stay there or to work there. And this woman went off to give an incredible list of reasons why somebody might want to work for that company. And I said, compensation's part of it. Absolutely. It's a major part of it. And not that it has to pay the most. It should be part of a job posting. And that's a line in the sand that I've drawn, and I stand on this side. For anybody to spend time in the process, they need to know before they get started how much how much the job pays, right? So there's no other consumer experience where people don't realize how much something costs until like they're at the register and got their wallet open or get it home, right? Because a lot of times an applicant doesn't find out how much the role pays until the negotiation phase, right? Or maybe 7 emails in or 2 interviews in, right? And that's the only place where that experience actually happens that way. It's in everyone's best interest to get that out as early as possible. And I do recognize that there are certain situations in collective bargaining agreements or some agreements that are in place where things might not be able to be communicated, but that is not the majority of the time. The majority of the time, the role, I promise, is one that can have the compensation called out in the job description for that role. And if we want to look at some companies that I believe are wrapping everything up in some nice packaging, meaning they understand who they're talking to, they're talking directly to them, and they're showing people the menu. A few quick examples. One, Shopify. Shopify is not trying to fill their pipeline, their funnel with as many applicants as possible. They're trying to let people know who they want to apply to their roles. And so they start off, the very first thing on their career site that you see if you go there today, not everyone can do this, right? And obviously that in itself creates some intrigue. And then they go on to explain the types of people that they're trying to attract. And what's really interesting, they have this application process called Skip the Line. And when you skip the line, it's kind of like this open application where they ask some really interesting questions where applicants can apply. And Shopify's whole goal is to hire the people that are best at what they do. And they've created this incredible culture around that piece. And you'll see that the CEO, Toby, the CEO of Shopify, does a really great job of taking some public stands on the way that they're going to work. And as a result, there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of people that oppose those things, but it also starts to really attract people that it resonates with. You can see even, I believe earlier this week, Toby sent out a memo about how Shopify is going to approach AI and what they expect as an organization for everybody in that organization to adopt AI and what that looks like for Shopify. So Shopify is a great example of a company that's wrapping these things up together. Doesn't mean that they're getting all the things right all the time. No, but they're really doing a great job of with some of it. Oatly, another one, so oat milk company, go to their career site, see how they're doing it, but they're doing a really great job of speaking directly to the types of candidates that they're trying to approach, that they're trying to attract. They are creating context for them, and they're doing their best to give people the menu, show them the menu with the context that goes with that. And then the final example that I'll bring up is one called Hogan Lovells or Lovels. And what I really want to call out about this organization in particular is their Stories That Define series, if you go to their career site. And this is, in my opinion, one of the greatest ways that, one, you can establish context, and 2, you can show people the menu, is by showcasing people that are in your organization that are already working there that have a story to tell. Why are they doing what they're doing? What does their career trajectory look like in your organization? Why did they initially apply? What was the interview process like? What gets them out of bed every day to come into work and work on the problems that your organization is trying to work on? And I think that this is a really great example. And one thing that I'd like to call out now is that not always does this content have to be filmed with the most professional camera and a crew and have wild production value? I've seen organizations huge in scale. I'm talking companies like VMware or GSK that have done things like pulled out a phone and they ask a question and you record on your phone, and 20 minutes later, you have a video that's approved to go live in a job posting or on YouTube or on social, asking a person a question about, again, why they're working for your organization and what their experience has been like. And so our job at the end of the day is to show people and not tell people. And this is your permission to get rid of the headline, "Here we grow again," right? I see so many LinkedIn posts that start that way. Here we grow again. This is your excuse. This is your permission. This is your ticket to get out of that pattern. And it was this strategy report put together by Rally Social Recruiting. And Rally, they showed this data that this "we're hiring" social post that people tend to put online, it consistently performs in the bottom 25% of engagement on all social recruiting content. Versus if you put out content spotlighting an employee, inviting people with a CTA to learn more, it can lead to 133% more applications by taking candidates on a journey to learn more about the team and the culture first before offering the job. This is showing candidates the menu. This is creating context without needing to write a whole bunch of words in a job posting. There are other things that we can lean on and these other strategies that we can follow to help create instant context with our candidates and create all of the clarity and eliminate a lot of the bias that tends to creep into job postings. And so wrapping this all up before we go into QA, this process looks like this. Identify who you truly want in your organization for the role that you are about to open or the job posting that you're about to write. Once you know who that is, I want you to start talking directly to that person. And I want you to show them the menu, meaning I want you to show them all of the reasons that they would love to work for your organization and some of the reasons that they might not want to work for your organization. And by doing that, we're creating context. And by doing that, we are creating clarity. And by doing that, we are starting to eliminate bias. And by doing that, we can empower job seekers to no longer have to point, smile, and hope when sending in an application, hoping that they get some clarity on the other end, or hoping that they get a response, or hoping that they'll get a job and get to learn more about it after interview number 1 or 2. By doing this, we can create clarity and context for job seekers. And guess what? That helps the organization. That helps you as someone who's trying to attract these people not have to sift through so much of the top of the funnel and create more clarity for you and the rest of your hiring team. So I challenge you that the next requisition that you are about to open, I want you to ask these questions to yourself. Do I know who I'm talking to? Am I speaking directly to them? And am I truly showing them the menu? By answering those questions, I believe that you can, again, help empower job seekers to avoid pointing, smiling, and hoping.